I still remember the day it all changed for me, the day I stood in that lavish ballroom, surrounded by the glittering elite, my family glowing in the limelight while I stood in the shadows. The grand chandelier above us sparkled, but all I could feel was the weight of embarrassment pressing down on me, leaving me breathless. It was a family gathering, one of those occasions where the rich and powerful gathered to flaunt their wealth, and I was the odd one out, a so-called black sheep, an underachiever with my tiny salary. Are you even sure you can afford to be here? My sister's voice was like a knife, slicing through the air, sharp enough to make my skin crawl. She stood there, draped in designer clothes, her confidence radiating like sunlight while I felt like I was drowning in a sea of their expectations. I forced a smile, but my heart sank. The truth is, I didn't want to be here. I wanted to celebrate my parents' success, but found it increasingly difficult to bear their patronizing remarks about my career as a graphic designer. It must be hard scraping by on that little salary, my mother chimed in, laughter dripping from her words as if I were the punchline to a cruel joke. The flicker of satisfaction in her eyes stung more than I cared to admit. I couldn't help but feel ashamed, the heat rising to my cheeks as my heart raced with a mixture of anger and deep-seated vulnerability. Their wealth had always loomed over me like a shadow. As a child, I was taught that money equaled success. My sister Jenna was the embodiment of that lesson. From an early age, she was the golden child, the one who excelled at everything: academics, sports, social life, while I struggled just to find my footing. Her achievements were celebrated with lavish parties, awards, and acknowledgement, while I was often left in her shadow. The dynamics of our family were suffocating, an unspoken hierarchy where I was at the bottom. Even now, as I stood there, painfully aware of the gulf between us, I felt a deep rage welling inside me, rage at their arrogance, rage at my own shortcomings. I wanted to scream, but instead clutched my drink a little tighter, letting its coolness ground me for a moment. "What's wrong, little brother?" Jenna continued, her voice dripping with mock concern. "Too busy with your tiny salary to get a real job?" Laughter erupted from a small group, fueled by her cruel jab. My parents joined in. Laughter echoed off the marble walls, a twisted symphony that drowned out my thoughts. My heart raced with anger, but what could I say? I could feel the eyes of the other guests darting toward me, their curiosity piqued by what they perceived as a failure. I had always wanted their approval, but in that moment, all I felt was a profound sense of rejection. I recalled my childhood memories, filled with fleeting moments of pride when I managed to impress them, only to be followed by their dismissive remarks when I failed to live up to their standards. I was constantly compared to Jenna, her successes creating an ever-growing chasm of disappointment that I was desperate to cross. Life as their child wasn't easy. I remember the countless times I was subjected to the comparisons of our lives, my meager salary and her constant streams of bonuses. It was a lifetime of emotional manipulation wrapped in a bow of perceived love, and I was too afraid to unwrap it for fear of what lay beneath. "You just need to try a little harder," they often told me, their voices heavy with judgment. As the night wore on, I decided to retreat, seeking solace on the balcony where the cool breeze met my flushed skin, a brief escape from the suffocating atmosphere inside. The city lights twinkled below, but even their beauty failed to lift my spirits. Why did I allow them to make me feel so small? I had dreams, ambitions that I was chasing, a graphic design business that I was slowly nurturing in the shadows. Slowly, I was building something that would one day be mine and mine alone. But in that moment, surrounded by opulence, it felt like a distant fantasy, a glimmer of light that was too far to reach. Standing there in the solitude of the night, I felt a shift within me, a whisper urging me to stop seeking their approval. I was tired of being the butt of their jokes, tired of feeling like I had to prove my worth at every turn. My heart raced with a new sense of determination, a quiet resolve igniting within me. If you've ever been underestimated by family, you'll understand every part of what happened next, I thought to myself as I gazed out into the vast expanse of the city. In that moment, I resolved to reclaim my narrative, to turn the tide. I would show them that beneath my tiny salary lay an unyielding spirit and untold potential, one that would soon challenge the very foundations of our family dynamics. The humiliation I faced that night was only the beginning of my internal conflict. It would push me to the brink, to seek answers, to discover the power I refused to acknowledge. I could feel it bubbling beneath the surface, a well of strength waiting to break free. But little did I know, the path ahead would not be easy. As I turned back to face the festival of superiority that my family relished, I felt the storm brewing within me. The days of feeling insignificant were numbered. I would rise not just for myself, but for everyone who had ever felt small in the eyes of those they loved. This was not just my story. It was a story of resilience, a story that was about to unfold in ways I could never have imagined. As I stood on that balcony, the city sprawled beneath me like a glittering ocean. I felt a mix of anger and determination swirling within. The laughter from the ballroom echoed in my ears, a constant reminder of how small I felt, but I realized I could no longer let their words define me. My heart raced as I thought about the graphic design business I had been secretly cultivating. It was time to take control of my life, to stop living in the shadows of my sister's achievements and my parents' expectations. The more I thought about it, the more I felt the fire inside me igniting. I had been working tirelessly on my portfolio, creating designs that I was proud of, something that felt like a true representation of who I was. I had spent countless nights researching the market, connecting with potential clients, and refining my craft. Yet every time I felt a flicker of hope, I was reminded of the humiliation I faced when I returned home to my family. They wouldn't understand the late nights or the sacrifices. They only saw the tiny salary that accompanied my dreams. I closed my eyes, envisioning my designs displayed on the walls of a trendy gallery, the applause of a crowd celebrating my work. The thought of showing them my success filled me with both excitement and dread. What would they say? Would they continue to belittle me, even if I achieved what they deemed impossible? The thought of their laughter, their mocking tones, sent a chill down my spine. But deep down, I knew I couldn't hide forever. Returning to the ballroom, I took a deep breath and steeled myself for the confrontation that was bound to come. Jenna was ensconced in a group of admirers, her laughter ringing out like a bell, each peal a reminder of the divide between us. My parents feigned interest in my work, but their eyes were always drawn back to her, their golden child, the embodiment of their dreams. As the night wore on, the inevitable happened. My father, with a glass of champagne in hand, approached me, his smile wide but his eyes betraying a hint of condescension. "So, how's the little design business going?" he asked, his tone feigning interest but dripping with sarcasm. "I hope you're not too busy to take on a real job." The laughter that followed was a punch to the gut. I felt the heat rise to my face as the room turned to watch me, their curiosity piqued by the spectacle unfolding before them. I could feel my hands clenching into fists, but I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the hard work I had put into my plans. I was more than just their mockery. I was building something substantial, something they could never see. "It's going well, actually," I replied, forcing a smile, hoping to keep my composure. "I've got a few clients lined up and I'm working on some exciting projects." The words felt foreign on my tongue, the pride I tried to convey clashing with their disbelief. "Clients? Oh, how adorably quaint," Jenna chimed in, her voice a sweet poison. "Are they paying you in exposure or actual money?" The group surrounding her erupted into laughter, and I felt my heart sink. The familiar pang of humiliation washed over me, a wave of bitterness that felt all too familiar. But this time was different. I could feel that fire within me growing stronger, fueled by their disdain. They believed I was insignificant, that my dreams would always remain just that, dreams. But what they didn't know, what I had carefully hidden, was that I had secured a small investment from a friend who believed in my vision. I was on the cusp of launching my own brand, something that would not only showcase my designs but also prove my worth to them. As I navigated through the crowd, I felt a sudden resolve. I would no longer be the family's punching bag or the butt of their jokes. I would show them that my tiny salary was just the beginning. It wasn't just about money. It was about passion, creativity, and resilience, qualities that my family had overlooked in their pursuit of superficial success. I spotted my mother across the room, her gaze flickering toward Jenna. I approached her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Mom, can I talk to you for a minute?" The words escaped my lips before I could second-guess myself. Her eyes widened slightly as if she were surprised I had the audacity to interrupt her moment. "Make it quick, I'm busy," she replied dismissively, her tone cold. I felt the sting of her words, but I pressed on. "I've been working on my designs, and I think it's time I showed you what I'm capable of." I want to prove to you that my work matters, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Your work, she scoffed, her expression a mix of disbelief and disdain. What makes you think anyone would want to buy your designs? You're just not cut out for this kind of business. Her words felt like daggers, but instead of breaking me, they fueled my determination. I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves. I understand you have your doubts, but I know what I'm doing, and soon enough you'll see just how wrong you were about me. I turned on my heel, leaving her with a stunned expression. The air felt electric, the tension palpable as I walked away. I could feel the eyes of the guests on my back, their intrigue piqued by my boldness. I had crossed a line, but it was a line I had long been waiting to draw. I stepped outside again, the cool night air a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere inside. I had reached a breaking point, and it felt liberating. I was done accepting their treatment, done living in their shadows. I had plans, ambitions that I wouldn't let anyone, especially not my family, squander. With each step I took, I envisioned my future unfolding before me. The designs I was creating were not just images on a screen. They were pieces of me, woven with passion, and soon they would become my reality. I would rise above their mockery, and when I did, they would finally understand the true value of what I could achieve. The night was still young, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a burgeoning sense of hope. I was ready to reclaim my narrative, and I wouldn't stop until my family and the world knew the truth about me. I was not just their little brother or the one with the tiny salary. I was a force to be reckoned with, and the time for my revelation was drawing near. As I stood there, surrounded by the echoing laughter and the flickering lights of the ballroom, my heart pounded with a mix of fear and exhilaration. This was my moment, a pivotal turning point in my life. I could either retreat into the shadows or step into the light, ready to reveal the truth I had been hiding. But what would that reveal even mean for me? Would it finally earn me the respect I craved, or would it only invite more ridicule? I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the reality of my situation. The mocking laughter of Jenna and the condescending remarks of my father felt like daggers aimed at my self-worth, but I was no longer willing to be their target. I had spent the last few months building something that went beyond my family's narrow perspective. I was ready to stand up for myself, not just in words but in actions. I could almost hear the whispers of doubt that surrounded me, as if the very walls of the ballroom were conspiring against me. "What could you possibly achieve?" they seemed to chant, echoing my parents' sentiments. But beneath that noise, a quiet voice emerged, one that reminded me of the late nights spent sketching designs, the exhilarating feeling of securing my first few clients, and the dreams I had fought so hard to cultivate. Jenna was still the center of attention, her laughter ringing through the air like a poisonous melody. It was intoxicatingly sweet, yet it left a bitter taste in my mouth. The truth was, I had been successful. Years of hard work and dedication were finally beginning to pay off. I had a business that was gaining traction, and I wasn't just scraping by, I was thriving. Yet, the thought of sharing this news with my family filled me with anxiety. Would they even care? Or would they dismiss it as just another cute little hobby? Just then, I spotted my mother gliding through the crowd, her eyes sparkling with pride as she surveyed the scene. In that moment, I felt a surge of resolve wash over me. I had to confront them, not just for myself, but to show them that I was more than the black sheep. I was a force to be reckoned with. "Excuse me, everyone," I suddenly announced, my voice cutting through the chatter like a knife. Heads turned and the laughter dwindled to an uneasy silence. I felt the weight of their stares, but this time it didn't crush me. Instead, it fueled my determination. I have something to share. The room shifted, and I could see curiosity flickering in their eyes. My parents exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of surprise and apprehension. I took another deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "I've been working on my graphic design business for the past year, and it's growing faster than I ever anticipated." There was a moment of stunned silence, followed by an awkward cough from my father. Jenna's eyes narrowed slightly as if she were assessing a threat. "Oh, really?" she said, her voice laced with skepticism. "How quaint. Are you still making your little collages in your bedroom?" I could feel my blood boil at her words, but I pressed on, refusing to let her condescension derail me. "Actually, I've signed several contracts and have been commissioned for projects worth thousands of dollars. I've secured investors who believe in my vision." The room buzzed with whispers, and I could see the bewilderment etched on my parents' faces. Investors, my mother echoed, her voice tinged with disbelief. You mean people are actually paying you for your work? Yes, I replied firmly, the fire in my chest growing. And I've even been working on a brand that will launch next month. It's more than just a hobby, it's my future. I'm taking control of my life. A ripple of discomfort washed over the crowd. I could see Jenna's smile faltering, her facade cracking as the weight of my words sank in. My parents exchanged looks that told me they were struggling to process this new reality. Just then, an unexpected voice cut through the tension. I'd like to hear more about this, said a well-dressed man who had been quietly observing the exchange. He was a familiar figure in the business world, a successful entrepreneur who had made a name for himself in the tech industry. It's not every day one hears about a young designer making waves in such a competitive field. The attention shifted to him, and I felt a glimmer of hope. This was my chance to elevate my message, to show them that I wasn't just a nobody in their eyes. Thank you, I said, looking directly at him. I've invested a lot of time into understanding market trends and what clients are looking for. My designs incorporate sustainability and innovation, which I believe are crucial in today's world. As I spoke, I could feel the skepticism start to wane, replaced by intrigue. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the chance to turn the tide. With every word, I felt my confidence blossom, and I could see the stirrings of respect starting to form in the eyes of the crowd. Investors, you say, my father finally interjected, his voice strained. And what makes you think they'll continue to support you? What if this is just a phase? It's not a phase, I replied, my voice steady. When I was working behind the scenes, I learned not only about design but about business and finance. I know how to make this work, and I'm committed to it. I've been doing the numbers, and the projections show that my brand will become profitable within the next year. The room was silent, the air thick with a mix of disbelief and newfound acknowledgement. I could see my family grappling with the reality. They had underestimated me for so long, and now I was standing before them, ready to break free from their oppressive narrative. This was just the beginning. I felt a swell of determination surge through me, preparing for the inevitable confrontation that awaited. They would soon learn that I was not just their daughter struggling to find her place. I was the one who had silently funded their entire company with my entrepreneurial spirit, an unexpected twist in the story of our family that would soon be unveiled. As the murmurs of curiosity and disbelief lingered in the air, I knew that the next confrontation would shake the very foundations of our family dynamic. Their laughter would soon be replaced by awe, and their condescension would be eclipsed by respect. I was ready to show them that my tiny salary was just the beginning of a much larger journey. And with that thought, I felt a wave of excitement wash over me. I was poised to take the next step, and nothing could hold me back. The truth was about to emerge, and I would finally reclaim my narrative. As I stood there, a palpable tension filled the air, and I could feel the collective breath of the crowd as they awaited my next words. The moment was electric, charged with the weight of everything I had endured. I was no longer the timid child, shamed by my family's expectations. I was rising from the ashes of their ridicule, ready to unveil the truth that would shatter their perception of me. I'd like to have everyone's attention, I continued, my voice steady and clear. What you don't know is that I have been the one funding this family business for the past year. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and I could see Jenna's face twist in disbelief. My parents looked like they had been struck by lightning, their expressions a mix of shock and confusion. Excuse me, what do you mean? My mother finally managed to stammer, her voice barely above a whisper. It means, I said, my heart racing with excitement and fear, that while you've been busy mocking my tiny salary, I've been quietly investing in the very company you all take for granted. I hold the majority stake in it now. I've been the silent partner, funding the projects while you basked in the glory. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see Jenna's eyes darting around, searching for a way to regain control of the narrative, but this time I wouldn't let her. I've secured legal protections that grant me full control over the business. Any decisions made from now on will need my approval. It was as if a bomb had gone off in the room. The guests, initially drawn to the spectacle, began to murmur among themselves, their whispers growing louder as the reality of my revelation sank in. My parents exchanged panicked glances, their carefully curated image of superiority crumbling before them. I have been working tirelessly to build something meaningful, I pressed on, the fire within me blazing brighter than ever. And let me remind you, it was not just a hobby, it was my life's work. I've built relationships with clients and investors who see my potential. They believe in me when you never did. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the crowd, a tall man in a tailored suit, someone I had hired as a consultant for my business. He stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. I think it's time we clarify a few things, he said, his voice resonating with authority. As he began to speak, I could see my parents' faces pale. I'm here to confirm that the business has been thriving under protagonist's name's direction. Not only is he/she/they the primary investor, but he/she/they also holds the keys to its future. Any attempts to undermine his or her/their authority will not only be futile but detrimental to the company's success. The weight of his words landed like a stone in the pit of my family's stomachs. I felt a tremendous sense of liberation wash over me. This was the moment I had envisioned countless times, the moment when the tables would finally turn and I would reclaim my dignity. Jenna's veneer of confidence shattered, and I could see the fear creeping into her eyes. "This isn't fair," she spat, her voice trembling. "You don't know how to run a business, you're just a designer," I interrupted, my voice unwavering. "And I'm more than capable of making this company thrive. I'm not the black sheep anymore, I'm the one holding the reins." The crowd was buzzing, the atmosphere electric with intrigue and shock. I could feel the energy shifting in my favor as more and more people began to see the truth. I was no longer the underdog, I was the one in charge. "Let's not forget," I continued, "that I've always been underestimated. But this time, I refuse to let your perceptions dictate my worth. I've turned my passion into a thriving reality, and I'm ready to take this business to new heights." As I looked around the room, I saw the faces of those who once doubted me transforming from skepticism to admiration. My heart soared as I realized that I was no longer just fighting for recognition, I was fighting for respect, my respect. With every word I spoke, I felt the chains of my past fall away, replaced by a newfound sense of belonging and purpose. I was taking control of my narrative, and I would no longer allow anyone, not even my family, to define who I was. "From this day forward, I will be actively involved in the company," I declared, my voice resonating with confidence. "We will work collaboratively, but I will not shy away from making the tough decisions that need to be made. If you want to be part of this journey, you'll have to respect my position." The applause that erupted from the crowd was unexpected but welcomed. It felt like a wave of validation crashing over me, washing away the years of humiliation. I could see my parents' faces turning shades of red, embarrassment etched into their features. As I stepped down from my makeshift podium, I felt lighter, liberated from the weight of their expectations. I was ready to embrace my future, one where I would no longer be judged by my family's standards but by the merit of my hard work and determination. In that moment, I realized that true wealth was not just about financial success. It was about self-worth, respect, and the courage to stand up for oneself. I had fought against the odds, and I was finally emerging victorious. If you enjoyed this story, I concluded, my heart swelling with pride, subscribe for more stories where the underdog finally gets the justice they deserve. Because every voice matters and every dream is worth fighting for. And with that, I walked away from the spotlight, ready to embrace the life I had built for myself, a life filled with passion, purpose, and the unwavering belief that I was enough.